Hello everyone, welcome to the Mobility Academy show, the only show where I'm going to interview for you guys the most amazing people from all over the world to discover the flexibility secrets and learn more about flexibility training. I'm the flexibility guy, Coach Elia, and this is the Mobility Academy show. Hello everyone, welcome to the Mobility Academy show. Look here who I have today for you. I have a legend here. If you've been practicing handstands, flexibility, movement in general, you surely know who I'm talking about. I have Yuri Marmerstein. And hello Yuri, thank you so much for being here. Let's introduce yourself, who you are, what's your current situation in flexibility training and more in general in training, and just let us know who you are better.
I'm trying to figure out who I am. I still don't know yet. I think that's actually where my training is right now, is trying to figure out who I am. Training's been interesting for me, I guess, the last year or so. So I don't know. I've always liked to do a little bit of everything. I started out and kind of did a couple sports when I was a kid. I was never good at them. Got into some backyard martial arts, got into some gymnastics, body weight strength, kind of went from there. Was really into hand balance for a while. That's kind of where a lot of people know me. Into like gymnastics and body weight strength. Did some weightlifting, performed in circus arts, tried to do a lot of other disciplines as well. So always tried to keep it varied, always tried to have kind of a wide perspective. Even when I was really focused on one thing, like even when hand balance was a major focus of my training, I would still try to vary it and do other classes, do other things, just to have that difference in perspective. Right now, what I'm doing, I don't even know, honestly, because my life is kind of split between, I've imagined like I have a stove with 5 burners and I'm trying to cook on like 7 different pans. So, number one, I'm just trying to stay in basic shape, like not try to get too out of shape. Just maintain, like if one of these things that I do that I'm maybe not currently training, if all of a sudden a gig pops up, that I'm in good enough shape that I don't have to do any massive training to do that gig. Like if I have a circus gig come up, I want to know that even though I'm not training that right now, I still have the basic body conditioning and skill that I could pick that up quick enough without having to come back. I've been getting into more like movie stuff, stunts, martial arts, acting, which is physical training, but
That's awesome. Awesome.
A lot of like mental and
I always watch
technique.
your stories about that.
Mental technique training as well. Trying to do a lot of things. As far as my own training, I haven't really done handstands in a while. I had a wrist, like a hand injury for most of 2020. It's neurological in nature. It was pretty complex, but basically my left hand didn't work properly for most of that year, so I had to put handstands kind of completely off the menu because I was focused more on healing that. It's mostly better now. I still have some issues with it, so I'm not really doing a lot of handstands at the moment. But it's what it is. It's life, and ultimately I want to be able to do a number of different things. I don't want to limit myself, and I've had this conversation a few times, mostly with myself, about kind of identity. Let's say if handstands is the only thing I do, and it's the only thing people know me for, and all of a sudden something happens that I'm not able to do handstands, then who am I? So it's this idea of I like to do different things, move on to the next thing, and if it's kind of that stoic philosophy I like to embody, if you lose everything, it doesn't matter because you just start over and keep going and you do something else. And in that sense, you can reinvent yourself. And like I said, I'm learning about who I am. So from the physical arts, I learned a lot about who I am. And now doing like acting is really interesting because I'm learning a very different side to who I am. And it's just kind of completing all of that. And having an injury that didn't allow me to do what I had been used to doing for so many years gave me even more insights. all of this lockdown thing, losing my business I didn't lose my business, but I lost the ability to do business. Again, it just gave me more insight. So all of this is like, I guess you get put into different situations that kind of test who you are, and then you figure out how you react. So my current training, yeah, I don't know. Like yesterday, so 2 days ago, I did some hiking on a trail. It was like pretty rough hiking, a lot of rocks, had to
Yeah, yeah.
carry on ropes. So that was like this is just again this week what I'm doing. It's random stuff. So I did so that was like a 5 hour hike, and in the evening I did some crawling on the floor and I climbed a rope. And then yesterday I did something in the morning. I forget what. Oh, right. So yesterday I ran a private lesson, which I did a little bit of training, just some basic acrobatic stuff, and then I did squats in the evening. And today, like back squats, right? And today I don't know yet what I'm gonna do. My body feels okay, so I want to do something. I'm gonna figure it out. So it's like I'm doing a lot, and then tomorrow I'm teaching a flexibility class online, and that's going to be lower body, pancake, middle split. So I'm going to have to schedule around that. So like as far as my current training, I don't know, man, it's all over the place. But I kind of like that because again, you get into that question of what am I
Yeah.
doing? What am I trying to do? What is my goal? Like, I'm not doing as much circus stuff. Why? Maybe it's not as interesting to me as it used to be, but also maybe because of the how big of a hit the industry took, maybe there's also less chance of turning that or being able to make money from it. And then also there's, of course, the risk of injury. Of course, with that kind of stuff, as you do bigger skills, there is always a risk of injury. And I don't know, but I'm still want to
Yeah.
maintain some of it. So I don't really know what my training is. If I have a specific reason to train a
Yeah.
specific thing, I'll do that. If not, and that's just my personality too, it's something I need to work on. It's kind of focusing on one
Of
thing. It's
course.
very difficult. On my internet browser, I have 80 tabs open, and they're all stuff that I need meant to look at. But then something else came up, and it's how it goes. It's life.
Yeah, yeah, that's really a good point. And I know you cause we met in, I don't know, it was like 2017, something like
It was
that.
2017. I remember it very well because
17.
I was in a really not a good time in my life for a number of reasons, and I appreciate you
Okay.
helping me out because what ended up happening was I had a 7 week tour, and 3 weeks of that got completely destroyed because they didn't let me into a certain unnamed country. So I had to. It would have cost me
Yeah,
like $10,000 to go back to the U.S. with a 1 day notice. So basically, I just reached out to the community to see if I could schedule, get a couple things going on in the EU with very short notice. And you were one of the people that responded. And that definitely helped me out a lot because I was trying to fill 3 weeks of
three
time
weeks. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember. I
that I had
remember.
planned out. So I went to Portugal and then I went to Italy and then I went to Sweden
That's Sweden,
instead
yeah.
of going to the UK and Ireland.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember that you came here in Italy and you were doing that European tour,
Yeah.
and you are such a skillful person that like has different backgrounds, etc. So for that, you know a lot of things about training in general, not only about, as you said, not only about handstands. If you're really good at flexibility, you're really good at strength training. You like you've been studying a lot of things throughout the years, and now maybe all these things are like fighting with each other to let you find what you enjoy the most. But
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And here on this is the Mobility Academy show, so I want to talk a little bit about flexibility. And since you are like a traveler, you explored the world. You know a lot of things about coaches, practitioners from all around the world. And what you think about the flexibility situation around the world? There are many schools, many coaches, many kind of messages around the internet and also the world, because you know it. And what you think about all these messages? Sometimes maybe the information about flexibility is kind of controversial. It's kind of too much. They are overcomplicating things, etc. What you think about all this stuff, all the flexibility situation around the world?
I think it's good and bad. I think the good thing is that there's more people interested in becoming flexible. And I think one of the benefits maybe to more people working at home. I think one of the reasons people kind of shy away from flexibility training is because it's not normalized. Like if you stretch in the office, you're that weird guy, right? I stretch in the airport and I've gotten yelled at by like a random guy because I was stretching like, bro, I'm going to sit on an airplane for 5 hours. Like, I don't want to, no offense, but I don't want to look like you in 30 years. So it's that. I think one of the good things is that because more people are spending time at home, now it's more normalized. They have more time to actually put effort into their flexibility training. They're starting to realize that it is part of a general health practice. So I think it's good that there's more interest. Like with everything, and this happened with handstands, it's happened with a lot of things, when it becomes commercialized, then it becomes too flashy, too maybe unrealistic. You have, people try to make it sexy. Because, for example, like if I'm going to, what flexibility do you need for general health versus show-off flexibility? Show-off flexibility is like a split. Do you need a split to have a better quality of life? Probably not. But do you need to have control of your hips and this kind of stuff? Probably. But the sexy stuff, you're going to get attention with the splits, but maybe not ever. So there's that side of it where it's like the over sexified work of flexibility, where in reality, it's just like anything, you have to figure out what you want it for. It's not wrong to want to do the splits, but also like how many people need to do it, how long it's going to take. I'm sure I know you have some posts of the issues of the 30-day splits protocols, where like, of course it's completely, of course it's completely unrealistic, but that's part of the sexiness as you try to sell this. And it's a really, in the fitness world in general, it's a really difficult thing to sell. Like you're probably going to have to work hard for a couple of years to achieve the goals that you want to, whether it's changing your body, whether it's getting stronger, to build to build something that's permanently a part of who you are. That takes a long time, and that's usually measured in years. If something you do takes 1 month, let's say even if you achieve it in 1 month, how long is it going to take you to forget it? Probably less time than that. So that's kind of the difficult thing, is because people who don't know, they're going to be swayed by those sexy ads like, oh yeah, you can learn a handstand in just a few weeks. You can learn your splits in 4 weeks. And the reality is the people who are the best in the world, who are more talented than you, who have better coaching and better potential than you, they took years to get to where they're at. So what makes you think that the people who are some of the best in the world, that they took years, that all of a sudden you can do that in a fraction of the time? And it's an interesting mindset, but sometimes people want to hear that. They want to hear, oh, it's going to be easy. But it's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be
Whether that's
easy,
flexibility or fitness or anything, you have to spend time and get uncomfortable, but you can't sell that. Building flexibility is very uncomfortable.
If you say to people like, okay, you need 5 years to get to that, like, I don't know, that side split or that front split, I don't know, whatever is the position. And of course, depending on the starting level of flexibility of the individual, then it will be like really difficult to sell her or him that kind of product, because 5 years are so long and people like don't want to spend so much time on something. So I don't know, I think that not everyone is looking for shortcuts, but as you said, when something like gets viral, so everyone wants to do it, everyone wants to achieve a split, etc., then people try to sell that thing at the lowest price with the minimum amount of time required. So, for example,
Yeah.
I don't know, $20 for 4 weeks, and you get the
Right.
splits, and that's
And then
that's
the other issue, and this happens again not only in flexibility. So when you try to sell to a wider audience, you have to generalize. And then you have to say, okay, this is the program, and then everybody's going to do this program. But the reality is, and this is the same with these high-level athletes that took years, like, what makes you think that if you do the same thing that they're going to do, that you're going to get the same results?
yeah.
That's not the case. You have to individualize it, but that's also the issue, is it's very hard to sell this idea that you probably shouldn't be doing exactly what I do in terms of flexibility training or any kind of training, because you're not me. You can
Yeah.
take, there's going to be a lot of the same concepts. Obviously, we're not, if we both want to achieve the splits, we're both going to be doing a lot of the same exercises, because it's not going to be like one person does something completely different.
Yeah.
But there's also that idea, and it's also a very difficult thing to sell. Like, oh, you just do this program and you just follow these exercises. But the reality is, it takes a certain amount of self-awareness to understand how to make those exercises more useful for the individual. But you can't sell a program to a million people
Yeah,
that says, like,
exactly.
hey, you got to individualize it.
Of course, of course. And this is really the point, because I asked you what you think about the world situation, about flexibility, etc. But you have worked also with a lot of adults. So adults like develop flexibility completely in a different way, because there are a lot of coaches who like teach flexibility to really young people, like gymnasts, I don't know, and they try also to apply those concepts on adults, and of course
Yeah.
that doesn't work. But you have like a lot of experience here teaching to adults how to get more flexible. I don't know, how to get the splits, how to get a
Right.
handstand, how to get a bridge, how to have
It's a very different
and
mindset, and
yeah, what you
it's
think about that?
to teach a child. You can basically, you only have to move one direction. Of course, it's not the same with everybody, but you don't have to be, you have to be skilled to teach a child to get to a very high level. Like, for
Yeah,
example, if you're training a child to be an Olympic level gymnast, you need to be thinking 5, 10 years ahead. But to just train a child to get better at something, pretty easy, because they're always learning about the world, and they adapt without thinking about it. They're a lot less resistant.
yeah,
And part of that is the child mindset is they don't know the limitations of themselves or the world. So for example, you can just put a kid in a split, and then you do that every day, and in a few months they're going to
and
have a
that's it.
split because
Yeah,
they're just
yeah.
adapting. And I used to coach gymnastics, right? So sometimes it's just enough to put a kid in a different group. If you would put a kid in a group of higher level kids, they would just adapt to the environment. Like, oh,
To the
they're doing their
environment,
splits lower, so I should get lower.
I should
With
get lower. Yeah,
adults, the issue is resistance to learning, resistance to change, because there's a certain point, whether you want to or not, there's a certain point as you grow up that you've learned, and you think you've learned enough. You think that you've learned enough about the world, that you know your own limitations, and that you know the limitations of the world around you, and then you behave based on those limitations. So flexibility, a lot of it is, of course, it's physical, but there's a psychological control. And what happens is you think you can't do the splits because you haven't done it before. That's completely
yeah,
natural. So it causes discomfort. Or you think you can't do the splits because, like, what's one of the common, oh, that looks like it hurts. That's already
yeah.
a mindset for failure. People that say that, yeah, you think it hurts, so you're less likely to do it.
To
And then
do
what's
it.
going to happen when you do it? It's going to hurt, and you're just going to focus on that pain. You're like, oh, I knew it was going to hurt. So it's become kind of not normalized for an adult. Part of it is society. Like, as adults, we're supposed to not move and not play around. So there is a societal part of it. There is the psychological element, in that why wouldn't it be normalized to be flexible. It's good for a number of reasons. It'll make you more athletic. It to a certain degree, it's just better for general lifestyle. Like the elderly have a problem with moving and falling and getting up, so it's even more important to keep
Yeah.
that flexibility and limberness as you get older. But yeah, that's the problem with adults is that it may not even be conscious, but they either think or they know that they can't do it because they haven't done it before, or because when they see somebody else do it, it looks like it's so far away. It
Yeah.
looks like it's so difficult, and it like we've talked about, it's probably a path of years to get
Yeah.
there depending on who. But that what ends up happening with adults is that there's a very important psychological element, and it's this idea that you have to repattern the brain to push the limits. So you have to get very uncomfortable, otherwise you're not gonna you can
Yeah.
maintain the flexibility you have staying comfortable, but in order to actually gain, there's going to be a very deep discomfort. There might be some kind of emotional release. It might feel like you're going to tear something, but that's just your perspective. If you're actually careful about the training, it's very unlikely to get injured from flexibility training
Yeah.
unless you move fast when you're not ready.
Yeah.
That's usually,
Yeah.
or somebody pushes you down
Pushes
when
you
you're not
down,
ready.
or you use a
Because
weight, too
that's,
much weight
yeah.
into a
And
position.
that happens with kids sometimes with that coaches just come and push them down really
Yeah,
hard,
yeah, yeah.
which
I've
is
said that.
not necessarily the safest way to train for a number of reasons. For the kids, they can adapt a lot quicker, but yeah, it's with adults, it's knowing that you have to change what your brain thinks are your limitations. And I
Yeah,
like the analogy of like you have a car and the car can physically go, I don't know, 200 kilometers more than 200 kilometers per hour, but the computer stops it when it gets to 160.
to 160.
So
Yeah,
the car can go faster than that, but the computer is stopping the car from going faster. So it's like, it's not only with flexibility, it transcends. With flexibility specifically, it's like you have to reprogram this computer. There is
yeah,
a physical element. You have to put yourself in these positions, but you also have to put your mind in this position of, yeah, this is uncomfortable, but it's not that bad. And you
yeah,
make the uncomfortable more comfortable, and then you figure it out. And with adults, again, it comes back to that individualism. Everyone's going to have to do something a little bit different, and you're going to hit a plateau where you can't just continue moving forward. You're going
yeah,
to have
yeah,
to find something clever. Maybe a pillow, maybe a weight, maybe someone pushing you a certain way, maybe breathing a certain way. But with kids, they don't have to worry about that so much because you can just and again, this is not a way that I like to train, but with kids, you can keep pushing them. And when you feel like they get tired of pushing, they relax a little bit, you push them further down. That's how a
you
lot
push
of the
it forward.
gymnastics and circus coaches do it. And the
Yeah,
kids are crying, and the kids are not having a good time. They're building their own psychological trauma for it. That's how they're trained in a lot of these
yeah,
sports.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
they deal with that trauma later on in their lives. So, but that's the point is you don't really have to have a workaround. But with adults, you're going to hit this point where, okay, it's a wall in front of me. I can't continue moving forward. I have to find something clever to do to move
Yeah,
forward, but get around this obstacle. And that's where the
yeah.
individualism comes in, is that.
So besides like the psychological aspect of the thing, you think that there are also some things that adults might do to improve their flexibility level. So, for example, you said that it's like having a wall in front of you, and if you want to increase your flexibility level, you need to do something. You need to like change the way you train, and with that you mean like using different stretching methodologies, like I don't know, the PNF, using a weight, using dynamic exercises, using loaded stretching exercise as a partner, whatever the strategy, but you need to figure it out how to get like further into the stretch.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
yeah.
Because
So
getting further, Yeah, it's very rarely a function of your physical form. It's usually something blocking you. It's possible. It's possible some people's hips are built in a certain way that
Yeah.
the body physically won't go further. That's a different story. That's something you can't really change, you can't fix, and that's genetic, and that's something you have to deal with. But when it's a resistance of the brain that's causing tension, yeah, it's exactly that. That's why I like to teach with so many different methods, because some people do very well with weights. Some people do well with relaxing. Some people do well with dynamic, ballistic. And it's good to have those options because there's a certain point you're going to hit where whatever you're doing is probably not working anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's different from person to person. Some
yeah.
people, like, it took me about 2 years to get the splits, and the PNF was the thing that helped me. I was just sitting in the position,
Same for
and
me.
I read Pavel's book, and he talked about
Yeah,
squeezing and relaxing, and then within a week I was all the way flat.
yeah.
My roommate, for example, has a lot less genetic potential for flexibility. He's been working out of splits for over 10 years, and he changes methods. Sometimes he uses weights, sometimes he uses, and he's getting further and he's making progress, but it's like someone who's a lot less naturally inclined has to do that even more. Like this idea of you do something
Yeah.
for a few weeks, you make progress, and then you change and do something else because then you stagnate in that progress.
Yeah, do you have like a favorite one, a favorite methodology you like usually suggest to people like, okay, try this one because for me it's the best.
Yeah, I like to cycle. So I get the first thing is I like to do dynamic outside of it, just like on a regular basis. That lifestyle change, like this idea that doesn't mean if I'm working on my splits, I'm doing splits all the time, but it means that throughout the day I'm doing like little stretches, like
Yeah,
a cat. Like a cat gets up and does this check and does these beautiful stretches throughout the day. So that's something that's going to help maintain the gains a lot easier. And then for the actual training, I like to do a cycle of relaxed, resisted, and active. And I like to cycle through that. So it's like, let's say, let's say in a middle split, for example, just because it's an easy example.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I rotate between, and this is in the same set. I found that
The
for
same
me to be
set.
very
Okay, okay,
effective.
okay. I
The
was
same
thinking
set,
I
but
would okay, I was thinking
it's a
about you do
cycle.
this like throughout the months. So 1 month with one method. Okay, no, it's just in the same
I
set.
like to do everything at once. I'm not organized enough to
Yeah,
do
yeah, I
one
like,
thing for
yeah,
a
yeah.
month.
I'm in the
Yeah,
same situation. I like to do also as you're
yeah.
doing here.
Yeah, so the same set. So middle split is just an easy example. So whatever version I'm doing, I go as far as I can and I'm relaxed. I feel the discomfort in my legs. I try to breathe, and it's this idea of I make this uncomfortable situation more comfortable. I
Yeah,
do that maybe by breathing, maybe distracting myself, maybe having a conversation, scrolling through my whatever, distraction. Then I'll do not necessarily this order, but the cycle. Then I'll do a resisted contraction. So
yeah,
resisted, my definition is I push against. So in a middle split, I squeeze my legs together regardless of where I am. I hold for a few seconds, I feel the intensity, and then I relax again and I let the tension go. And when I relax, hopefully I can go a little bit further. I try to breathe in a way that it's like tightening a ratchet, like you're tightening something on your truck. So I try to think when I'm in that relaxed state, every time I breathe, I try to let myself sink a little bit further.
yeah,
And I want to
yeah,
also be in
yeah.
a position where gravity can help. Then I'm going to do the active contraction, which in a middle
Okay.
split, it's kind of weird. In a middle split, it's going to be either opening the legs
Opening the
further,
legs.
contracting the outside of the hips, or if I'm already down pretty far, then it's going to be lengthening out, like making the legs longer,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
it may not visually look like something is happening, but for me, it's I'm actively going further in the
Of
stretch. And
course.
again, I hold that for a few seconds and then I relax again. So it's like that cycle between relaxed, resisted, and active. And I'll do maybe 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 4 rounds. And I'm going to always finish that with a relaxed stretch as far as I can go for maybe a minute, two
Yeah.
minutes, long enough that I know that I've gone significantly further than when I started, that I know I've gotten deeper, that I've built a new level of discomfort. And if that's a new discomfort, I don't want to keep that mindset that it's still uncomfortable. I want to make it less uncomfortable. So I'm in my deepest part of the
Yeah.
split. I'll stay there for 2 minutes after the set is done. Just relax, just try to breathe, just try to get comfortable. And then when I come out, I try not to use the muscles that I stretch. So I kind of pretend that I'm paralyzed and I come out just with my hands and then I lay down for a moment. And that's that part of that. Interestingly enough, like not, I can get my splits back in one session, maybe 2 sessions after not training them for a very long time
Yeah, I
with this
remember that.
methodology, because it allows me to access that discomfort and remember what it was like to have it deeper. And it's a good. I like it because you're building strength. You're building the legs. You're building strength through the contractions. You're building control of the situation by
Yeah.
applying the strength in different ways. And you're building the relaxation too, because some people get too obsessed with having weights in the stretch and they can never relax because they're always trying to
Yeah,
hold
yeah,
something up.
yeah.
And it's,
That's a
again, you
really
look
good
at
point
cats.
here.
Cats are a good example because they have perfect flexibility and control of their bodies. When do
Yeah.
they ever look like they're working hard in any of their positions?
Yeah. That's a really good point, because you explained like what are your favorite stretching methodologies. So I think that kind of resistance contraction is
Yeah.
like the PNF, something like that.
Yeah, and I
And
like the contrast too. I like to know, to go through different extremes, and sometimes maybe I just tense to see how tense I already was. Like some people think they're relaxed and they're not,
but
so
they're
they
not.
build
Yeah.
tension, and then they figure out like, oh, I was actually really tense. Now I can actually relax more.
There's little like details in your training really are, in my opinion, the key to like increase the flexibility level of one individual, because
Yeah,
a lot of most of the time, like people don't think about all these things that are happening in a stretching position. They
yeah,
just stay there, or they use a weight, or they. So, for example, in a split, you brought the example of the split, okay? And sometimes I know people like saying to me, I heard that, I don't know, squatting 200 kilos will like get me the splits, because they try to find like a shortcut, which is not doing the split,
right.
not accepting the pain, not accepting like the discomfort and that kind of
Yeah,
emotional pain you feel in the split. And maybe you need to stay there, I don't know, 1 month, 2 months, 4 months, 5 months without seeing
exactly.
anything. And they try to find something different. So like they try to squat, they try to, I don't know, to deadlift. They try to stay in the horse stance. I know people like staying in the horse stance, the sumo squat, that kind of position for 5 minutes. And they said to me, I want to reach the side split. Okay, but how? How can you imagine to like reach the side split doing that kind of thing? It's surely useful. It's useful for sure, but you need to accept the fact that for the side split, you need to train the side split. You need to stay there, and as you said, to feel that kind of pain, to feel that kind of discomfort, and to deal with it, and
Yeah,
to
it's accepting yourself, and it's emotional too because part of it is, what if what if I fail today? What if my side split's not where I want it to be?
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah,
if
yeah,
what if next week it's not better than it was today?
yeah.
Sometimes you just and that's the hard part of that long-term journey is sometimes you have to accept that you're not going to see noticeable improvements for a long time. And
Of course.
it depends on the person. And yeah, this methodology that, okay, it worked for one person, so I'm going to try that. Go ahead and try it, but don't expect that because it worked for
Yeah,
one person it's going to work for you. And yeah, like
yeah,
you said, if that's the same thing too. You see that a lot in the fitness world is they try to indirectly approach the goal. Like do the thing and
yeah,
accept where you are, and then figure out ways to help you, like do the middle split. And okay, if you think horse stance with bent legs is going to help, it very well might. So do that, but don't think that you're going to achieve something by not actually directly doing the thing.
That's
And
the
then the
point.
other side
That's
of
the
that
point.
is if you only do the thing, it's probably also not going to be enough.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
for
yeah.
some people, that's kind of where the kids thing as well. So for some people, just sitting in the split once a week is enough to get the split. But for most people, just doing it and being there is probably not enough.
Not
You
enough.
probably
Yeah,
have to do more.
yeah. Accessory exercise, but you not done. You need to find the balance. I think here a good coach can like understand where you need to put the most of your
Yeah.
work. Like, okay, you need to do the splits, but you need more accessory exercises, or vice versa. I think it depends a lot on the flexibility level of the individual. So, for example, if you have a beginner, then like 10% of his work might be on the splits, but the remaining part might be spent on maybe all the accessory exercises. I don't know, the sumo squats, the frog stretches, the one leg frog stretches, the tailor poses, all the kind of like stretches for your hips to practice the split with the right kind of basics. Then when you are advanced, maybe you need 90% of your work on the splits and the remaining part on accessory exercises where
Yep,
you need
absolutely.
maybe to address some, like, I don't know, some weak points, some stiff points where you need like specific work on them to try to I mean, like, to soften them, to gain range of motion there. And you also like
Interesting.
have, yeah.
Yeah, interesting you say because I used when I taught gymnastics and cheerleading and flips, I used a very similar methodology for that. Is it's like so I would get a lot of students who want to learn a back handspring, for example. So I have to assess their physicality. It's a physical skill. It's a psychological skill. It's
Yeah,
difficult. There is a risk, and it was exactly that. So you want to learn back handspring, every session you're going to do it. But a beginner might need a lot more basic work, a lot more conditioning, a lot more of that. So, like you said, in an hour long session for a beginner, they might only spend 10 minutes working on the
yeah,
skill because they
exactly.
need more. Someone who is closer to doing the skill and has more solid basics, it's going to be the opposite. They're going to spend maybe 40, 45 minutes just working on the skill itself, and then the 10, 15 minutes on basic accessory work.
Yeah,
And neither of those is right or wrong. The beginner is not ready to do that many of the skill, and it's going to build bad habits. The someone who's more advanced, like you can't work basics forever. You can and you should, but if you only work basics, you're not going to get better at
no,
the
yeah,
advanced stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's something that people like you understand because they've been on the path. They've been on the path. They know what you need to bring someone from the beginner stage where you don't know like what you do to do the skill, and then you like start from somewhere, and then as you progress you understand the things and you get ready for the specific work, and you have really good splits, for example. And you said to me, okay, I remember we were in my gym, and you said, okay, it's like I don't train for splits like so often. I'm not training for the splits for from like, I don't know, 5 years, and you did a split from standing. You went down to a split, and what, like, in your opinion, why you are able to like show that kind of flexibility even though you're not training for it specifically for so long?
Oh, that's a good question, and it's I'm still trying to figure that out. I think I don't know the answer completely. There is a level of confidence in knowing that you spent, because it took me a few years to get it to that level of confidence.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
you know that you spent a few years on doing something, then you should have it. It's like this idea that you have it in your pocket, and it's very different training for something you're in the training session versus you do it. To some degree, and this is my own personality, sometimes I work better when there is a pressure, when there is a little bit of a chaos, when I have to,
Yeah.
do it for people, a little bit of a show, it's probably going to be better than if I just do it for myself. So that's part of it. It's like a little bit of a performance. Like I know that I have to do it because there's a pressure, so I have to do
Yeah.
better. Um, knowing that you won't injure yourself, and that's part of that confidence, is like this idea that I've done it enough times to know that I can do it, and I've done it enough times in different situations to different responses. Like this is,
Yeah.
it's not just flexibility, this is any skill. So you train for it when you take the warm up, you take your preparations, and then you train to do it with less preparation, because as we just talked about, as you get more advanced, you should take less preparation. Maybe in the beginning of your splits, you need to do your frog and your Taylor pose and all of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
later, like I'm just going to do a couple Cossack squats to make sure my hips are good, and then I'm good to go because
Yeah.
I've done it enough times. And then the next level of that is the imperfect situation, is like the chaos response. This idea that what if you have to do it now to save your life?
Now, yeah,
What
yeah,
if you have
not.
to do it on two chairs with the wind blowing? Like this, maybe splits aren't the best example of that, but like this idea, handstand is a good example where, okay, you learn to do it with your warm up, and then you learn to do it consistently in your training, and then doing it in front of people. That's a completely different story. Doing it when you only have one chance to get it right. That's another level of confidence. Even though the skill hasn't changed, you have to have a much deeper level of your own confidence and your own awareness with the skill. What if you have to do it outside, where the grass is uneven or it's windy? And I like to take it maybe a little bit more extreme. So one of the things that I've been training a little bit is like guns, firearms, tactical
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that it's also very interesting in that, because first you learn just to shoot the gun and hit the target in a range, very controlled, right? Then you add speed. When you add speed, your accuracy goes a lot lower, right? It's very different doing something with as much time as possible for accuracy, and then trying to do it as fast as possible. You see how long your accuracy goes down. Then you add these other layers. You add, maybe you have to move, maybe you have another specific task. And it's again this idea that your accuracy, like I'm getting a pretty good accuracy. I was shooting 100 meters the other day, pretty good accuracy when that's the only thing I have to focus on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
then once you start to incorporate these other potentially chaotic elements, you see how much worse, significantly worse, your accuracy gets. So it's
Yeah.
like the same idea. You learn to do the skill in a controlled situation, and then you learn how to control different elements of it so that you can still do it in a situation that's not as
Yeah,
controlled.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Like I did performing in the circus, and that there's a lot of that as well. Is it's like you do your rehearsal, and you do the stuff and you do the skills. It's very different when you have an audience. It's very different when there's a show going on and there's other stuff. Maybe we're flying in the air and there's dancers. Maybe there's a lot of, maybe something goes wrong and you have to go with it. So getting back to the flexibility side of it, it's
Yeah.
like doing it enough times, because if you're new to the training, you should never do that. Just drop into the splits with no warm up. If you're just learning it, that's one of the ways that you can get injured, is by
You
going
can get
too
injured.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to know yourself, but it's this idea of progressively doing it with less warm up, with less preparation, doing it in different situations, and that's going to take years. That's not going to take anything less than a couple of years.
Yeah, 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 of
And then
course.
you have that confidence of knowing that I can do it. And maybe not. There's nothing wrong with also knowing yourself well enough to say, like, I know myself
Okay.
well enough that I can do the split with no warm up. But
Yeah.
also, that's part of knowing yourself, is I know that I need at least 5 to 10 minutes, even if I have my split very confident. I know that in order for me to do this in a way that's not risking anything, I need 5 minutes of hip warm up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
of
that's
course.
also that's a similar situation. Maybe it's not as impressive looking as doing it completely cold, but it's impressive that you know yourself enough that you know exactly how much. Like I was actually a conversation I had a few years ago with a contortionist who's doing some stuff for camera, for TV, and they're like, "Okay, can you do this stuff now?" He's like, "No." Because he's doing a lot of backbending, like extreme backbending, which is a little bit different than the splits. That's something that's a lot more risky to do with
Yeah,
no warm
yeah.
up. He's like, I need 15 minutes. Like, you're asking me to risk myself if I do it now. And then he took his 15 minutes, he took his warm up, and then after they saw what he was doing, they're like, okay, we're sorry. Now we understand why you need that warm up time. So that's
Of
also
course.
part of it, is exactly that, knowing yourself,
Yeah, yeah,
self
yeah, yeah,
awareness.
yeah. So for flexibility, I think that it's more like a neuromuscular also property. Because for handstands, maybe if you don't train for handstands for like I don't know 3 years, you can't go there and say, okay, I will do the handstand and for sure I will hold it, because it's not that like
Right.
it's it's more also you need to be confident for sure, but you also need to have that kind of understanding going on, which in handstands is really difficult to maintain. In
Yeah.
flexibility, you can maintain that kind of muscular property and express it whenever you want, even
Yeah.
though you don't train for it for, I don't know, 3 years, 2 years, etc. You can see that on gymnasts. I have a lot of students maybe who were gymnasts in their as they were like teenagers, and then after I don't know 20 years, I asked them for a split, and maybe it's not very confident to split, but they're just like few centimeters away from the floor. So that kind of the flexibility, you can maintain the flexibility when you build it, and you like
It stays with you because it's a little bit different than handstand, because handstand is a specific skill.
yeah,
So yeah, if you learn it well enough, you keep the confidence. But if you don't do it for that long, but flexibility is an attribute, so it becomes, like I mentioned earlier, it becomes a part of who you are. So
yeah,
even if you don't do it, your body remembers it, and it takes a lot less time for it to come back,
yeah,
for
exactly,
sure.
exactly. So now I want to change like the topic here for my last question for you. People ask, how can I get more flexible? Can I still like learn the splits even though I am 45 years old, etc. So what are the three main tips you would give people to get more flexible?
So one would be just kind of subtle lifestyle changes. So it's like things to do that allow you to put more flexibility into your life without training it directly. That might be changing the kind of pants you wear, right? Like some pants restrict you. It might be changing out your office chair or allowing more space. Allow things in your lifestyle that can help you to move better, so you're less restricted, because that's just going to over time build more freedom, and then you're going to be more likely to want to train because you're not in the prison of society, of your own house, of your own clothes even. So that would be number one, is
Yeah,
without directly training the flexibility, allow yourself more chances to be able to do it. Number two is regular direct training. Regular, who knows? I'm not going to tell you every day. Like, I do some light stretching every day, but
yeah,
it's not heavy stretching. It's just light movement so that I can maintain just for health. But if you're actively trying to get flexible, at least once a week, again, it depends on the person, but you do need dedicated sessions.
yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah, yeah.
not you're not going to make any kind of significant progress without directly working on the things. So you do have to, and it's not like 5 minutes at the end of your workout, it's not enough. It needs to be like, if that's an actual goal of yours, is to gain flexibility, you need to dedicate a specific block of time towards training only that. I think with a lot of the fitness world, people think that, oh, a couple stretches before my workout is enough. It's enough to maintain what you have. It's not enough to gain. You
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
be very specific on that. And yeah, the third is, I like to think of like an exploration and mindset. And this, it's a little bit of a deeper concept. It's not kind of one piece of advice. It's like, listen to what people say, don't listen too much until you do it, and then try to
Yeah.
connect between the two and always explore. Don't like one thing I don't like in class, like physical classes that I take, is this idea of a gym, what do we call a gym class warm up? Like, okay, everybody does one stretch and everybody does the same stretch and they all do it the same way. Try to avoid that. Try to make it a journey of self exploration instead of saying, like, instead of this idea that, okay, this video told me to do this stretch, so I'm going to do it. Do the stretch, and if you don't know what you're doing yet, that video is going to help you to structure the process. But don't think that if you do it, it's the same thing we talked about. If you only do that, it's not enough. You have to individualize it. You have to
Yeah.
make it for yourself. And you're not going to know how to make it for yourself unless you explore. So maybe the stretch is, you whatever, standing forward fold. You put your hands on the floor and you lean down. What if you can't put your hands on the floor?
Yeah.
Explore. So maybe you twist, maybe you hang, maybe you let your head go, maybe you bend your knees a little bit. But this idea of not just doing the stretch, but exploring it. And I like to use the analogy of kind of like walking on a trail. And this is just my personality. I don't like to just follow the path. I like to see what's, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So I like to explore so I know the path a little bit better. And it might take me longer to get to the end, but I know it better because I've spent time exploring instead of just looking in one place and only following the path that I've been going on.
Yeah. You are such like an open-minded person who's able to understand that everything starts from like your life, the way you live your life, as you said, like change your pants, change your t-shirt, change your environment. That will change also your flexibility for sure, and that's true. A lot of time, like people just stay in the wrong environment for their growth. And if you change the environment, if you like start using different pants, start thinking about flexibility not only as a thing like, okay, I need to go to the gym, I need to do my 15-minute workout and then I'm done. Okay, it's not exactly like that. If you embrace like the flexibility in your life, you do, as you said, I do stretches throughout the day. I squat down, I constant squat to hold that kind of thing that was on the floor. I do my cat stretch, I mobilize my spine, I just crawl, I bend my spine, I just try to stretch throughout the day. And also this one is a really important concept, and as you said, also like not stretching every day, but keeping like a movement, like a kind of maintenance walk, just to work on your goals and to like stretch a little bit every day, just to adapt your body to that kind of stressor there. And then you can make like 1, 2, 3 specific sessions a week just to work deeper on the stretches. That's maybe your message, and it's really inspiring. I think it's amazing. It's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with me and with
Yeah, pleasure.
our.
Yeah, and then just time. I guess that would be the fourth is the understanding. I talk about this with a lot of things. Understanding the long term, understanding it's a kind of cliche quote, but it's like the day you plant the seed, it's not the day that you eat the fruit. So you have to be okay with you plant the seed and you water it, but it's not going to be a
Yeah.
tree for a little bit of time. And sometimes it's just what it is. Like I've been working for the last year on stuff that I haven't seen anything come back from, but I'm okay with
Yeah.
it because I know that a lot of times this takes a few years. So I'm just going with it. And even though I'm not getting anything significant back, like I said, if you leave the seed alone, it's not going to be a tree. You have to take care of it, but you have to also sometimes understand that you're not going to get the pleasure from it for a long time.
Yeah, but you're enjoying the process. Maybe that's the most important thing, that you're part of the
Yeah,
process.
absolutely. And everything is a lesson. That's the other thing. If you treat this is, I had to change my mindset a lot too, and that's what's helped me to become more open. Whatever you do, everything is an experience and everything is a lesson. And if you hated it, if it was a terrible experience, then you still have something to learn from it because you can do better from it. If it wasted your time, why did it waste your time? What could you have done? Everything, whether it's a success or a failure, and the failures are actually more important, everything you do, there's some kind of lesson you can learn from it. And if you learn to look for that lesson, then everything is valuable.
Yeah.
And then all your time is spent towards improving yourself.
Yeah, I feel that. And I also, I completely agree with you on that. And it's really an awesome message, and I really want to thank you for sharing it with us. Now, Yury, this is the end of our interview. I will be doing this show for long, so I really hope that you will be on for another interview in the future, because I love to listen to your experiences, your messages, your kind of not only about flexibility, because flexibility is just the topic of this show, but I think that we have talked more about other things than flexibility, because we talked a lot about mindset, a lot about how you should organize your life and your strategies to improve your flexibility, but also more in general to improve your skills. And that's really good. That's really good. So I want to thank you for being here another time. Maybe if you want to say goodbye to our listeners, I leave to you the last words to finish up the conversation.
I don't have any last words. I guess I should promote myself since I'm pretty bad about that. So I don't know. I do some online classes. You can, if you don't want to pay anything, you can just subscribe to my YouTube channel. You're not going to get the good stuff, but you'll still get some good stuff.
Yeah, really good stuff.
I have a lot of stuff on Vimeo. I have more stuff coming out. Just released a couple handstand courses that are footage from a workshop that are not done by me, so they're actually professionally edited.
Yeah.
So that the footage actually looks really good. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff I offer online. If you're in the US, I am actually running an in-person workshop in Las Vegas at the end of May. If you're not in the US, I don't know when I'll be able to see you again because times are unpredictable. Hopefully I can start to travel again at some point.
Hopefully.
But I don't know what that's going to look like. So we'll see. Other than that, hopefully, I don't know, people got something from it. I'm still learning as I go. I don't know anything. I'm just trying to figure out more about life and share my perspective as I go.
Thank you so much for being here again. Bye-bye, and have a great rest of the day.
Yep, cheers.
All right, that's all for this episode of the Mobility Academy show. I have had such an amazing time interviewing Yury. He's such a great, smart person, and I want to remind you that you can follow us on Instagram, or you can leave a comment if you have any further questions for us. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode of the Mobility Academy show.